Hey, what's up? This is PJ Jacobson. Make sure you watch MotoAmerica on YouTube and you like and subscribe.
It's time for the MotoAmerica AMA FIM North American Road Race Championship. Our round, Superbikes at Pittsburgh, presented by LaRoche Aviation Services from Pittsburgh International Race Complex here in Wampum, Pennsylvania, also known as Pit Race. The stage is being set for race 2, round 7 of the Supersport class here, MotoAmerica competition. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pittsburgh. I'm Greg White, standing alongside two-time champ Jason Pridmore. Now, Jason, it's been unbelievable. The last 3 races we've had in Supersport and MotoAmerica has seen the surge of Rocco Landers, and he's 3 in a row.
Yeah, we've said that before in the past in some of the junior classes that we've had here at MotoAmerica, both in the Junior Cup and Twins Cup. We've seen him do this. It's taken him a little bit longer in the Supersport category, however, and the last year was a bit rough. The start of this year was a bit rough, but as you see here, Greg, he did start on the front row. Josh Herrin did get pole this week, but after he ends up working his way past that Ducati, Rocco just set sail again. And I mean, he's not just winning these races, he's winning them by wide margins. This was the early shot he took at Herrin. He would be denied on this particular time, but once he was able to get through, right here we see Herrin run just a little bit wide. Rocco slides that R6 up underneath him and would pull away. Benjamin Smith and Ty Scott would get locked into it a little bit here. Ty Scott would get the better and start his quest to get to the front to try to catch the 2 leaders. He would find himself get onto the back of Josh Herrin. He wasn't able to make that pass stick and get through, but this guy, Greg, won by, again, almost 7 seconds yesterday. Kind of cruising along. We did have a red flag that made this short, but it was on the white flag after that happened, and Rocco's on a roll.
Yeah, Rocco's definitely on a roll, and when we see riders win, normally their first time, it's not like it is. If you look at Brainerd, his first race win was at 4.5 seconds. Then he had the big 13, and last time, like you said, Jay, it was nearly 7 seconds. So for Rocco Landers, he is on a roll. Now let's get down to the grid, and the first member of our grid team is Hannah Lopa, and she's with Rocco Landers.
Well, Greg, as you guys mentioned, Rocco had such big success so early on in our series, capturing 3 championships, but joining the Supersport class, it's taken a little bit longer for you to get up to speed. Now you've really found your rhythm. Things are starting to click for you. 3 victories in a row. What would you say is the most important thing or most valuable thing that you've learned this season?
There's been a lot. Since Daytona, we've learned a lot. Josh has been helping me a ton. We've been able to figure out how to make this Yamaha R6 work to where, in a way that I like it. We've changed setup a lot. And, I mean, today's going to be a bit, I think, maybe a bit more difficult than yesterday was. Josh is going to be incredibly fast, I think. So let's see if we can replicate it. But we're going to send it.
Best of luck out there, Rocco. Let's get over to Jamie Howe.
Well, Tyler Scott is another rider that came out of the Junior Cup ranks. He's actually our reigning Junior Cup champion, made the move up to Supersport this year and made quick work of the progression here. You have 1 win, 7 podiums now, including a 3rd place yesterday, but you are some 6 seconds back of the lead pack. How do you close up that gap for the race today?
Yeah, we're just going to, right off the bat, try to stay up towards the front and battle all race, and I think it'll be a better race today.
Good luck.
Jason, let's take a look at the track map here at Pit Race. It's very challenging at 2.78 miles, and there's tons of elevation.
Yeah, truly a rider favorite, Greg. It's quickly become that since we've been coming here. The little jump over the top of turn 2 into our passing area into turn 3. And then it winds down a big hill to 5, back up that same hill, Greg, as you brake for turn 7 into those S's that are kind of unique to our series. Over to turn 12, you go back uphill there to a very tricky turn 14. Then you head down towards that chicane. You'll see some passes made on their way there into that last corner, turn 17. And you can kind of get close to making a draft on the Supersport machines, I think, before start-finish line. But that's a good lap around this place.
Can't wait to see how this one pans out, because it had rained earlier today. This guy, Josh Herrin, championship points leader, looking to try to regain the top step of the podium. Can he get it done? We'll find out when we come back.
As we had that shot there of Josh Herrin, I think one of the key things for him was after the race yesterday, he was visibly upset, and it was about a tire choice that they made. So obviously the track is different than it was yesterday, so they got to play that game all over again.
I think, though, the tire choice will still be the same as yesterday. I know the track temperature's a little bit cooler today. It's a little bit greasy out there too after the rain we had overnight, and you know, we've really only had one race out there with dry track, so not a ton of rubber laid down, but I think, you know, he's going to kind of go to that race tire he wishes he would have had yesterday, and I think you're going to see, just knowing Josh Herrin, he's going to be more aggressive today early on. He's you know, he's a competitor. He doesn't like getting beat by 6.5 seconds, and I think today you're going to see him just take some shots.
Yep, he's going to certainly ramp it up, and he's got a big enough of a point lead. He can take some of those risks. There's a shot of Dominic Doyle, and he is in pit lane, Michael Hill. What's the word?
Yeah, a little bit of drama down here for the district racing rider, the number 25 of Dominic Doyle. He pulled in on the end of that sighting lap. He did not take his place on the grid. He should be starting from the 4th row of the grid. Whatever happens now, he's going to have to start at the back of the grid. That's the rules. He'll have to rejoin and start from the back. But I understand from speaking to the team, there is an intermittent issue with the shifter on that Suzuki of Dominic Doyle. They have now taken off the tyre warmers, and he's now sat on the bike. My understanding is he's going to go out and try and do this warm-up lap. Whether he makes it round remains to be seen.
And he went from that 12th place starting spot, Michael, yesterday up to a top 10 finish in 8th. So he certainly got some speed, but this is going to be a whole different ball game going all the way back to outside of the top 20 at the start.
Yeah, one only, I guess, positive you'd say, look at this guy. He's loving it, isn't he? Only 19 guys. Luckily, it's not like a twins race where there's 42 guys. He'd start that far back. It's still definitely not ideal, and you know, the biggest thing for him is he's new to the Supersport class. He's going to be missing all that track time racing with some really good guys and gaining that experience.
And he has been really impressive when we have seen him run, and it's absolutely great to see. Again, Herrin Landers and Ben Smith, who had a really, really good qualifying run and not a terrible race. I mean, you know, he started 3rd, ended up in 4th, and ended up having just a great battle with Tyler Scott for a large chunk of that as well, until Tyler was able to drop him and run down Josh Herrin. So I think Ben's looking for something today.
Yeah, he's 2.5 seconds off the podium, so he's going to try to find that today. He's had a strong weekend so far. It'd be great to see him on the podium. He's had some really bad luck this year. A lot of things out of him and his team's control has happened, so hopefully today we can see him on that podium. He's earned it. He's worked hard for it, and you know, we're going to see what this guy can do today, Josh Herrin, see if he can't step up to the challenge and slow down the Rocco train.
And the interesting thing for Josh Hayes, in that wet warm-up this morning, he was really, really quick relative to everybody else. So I think he was doing a rain dance, and it didn't pay off.
Rain dance, or if it was half and half, he would have been tough to beat.
Yeah, I think he certainly would have been, as the field sets off now on the formation lap. Looking forward to this one. It should be a great battle up at the front. Going to see if, as you said, if Rocco can maintain the momentum he's got going. But Tyler Scott, Josh Herrin, and Ben Smith, I mean, it's a large group of riders that are ready to get after it here. And to take you through that call, let's get back over to Greg White and Jason Pridmore.
MotoAmerica Supersport coverage is sponsored by Geico, where 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on your car or motorcycle insurance. By LaRoche Aviation Services, elevating your expectations. And by Dunlop, the official tire of the MotoAmerica Championship Series.
Aerial support provided by LaRoche Aviation Services all weekend long here at Pit Race. It's been great to see. We certainly appreciate it as we get a unique look at Western Pennsylvania. Starting grid for Supersport race number 2 looks very much the same as it did. It's Josh Herrin, Rocco Landers, and Benjamin Smith.
Yep, Ty Scott, see if he made any improvements overnight. Mesa and Hayes. Be interesting to see if Josh Hayes gets a little closer too. Luke Perry, Nassani, Corey Ventura, who was quickest in warm-up, a wet warm-up at that. LaRoche, Soltis, and Dominic Doyle. Liam Grant, Blackall, Tropkoff, Chris Sarbora, and Jankowski Scalp is also there. Murphy, Zaragoza, and Seathaler.
So the question is, what changes were made from last night to today? They had a wet session this morning, so teams weren't able to test necessarily what they had or what they wanted to. And we saw different riders up there in the mix because it was full wet conditions, but now it's nice and dry, at least for the moment here at Pit Race.
Well, I can tell you right now that Josh Herrin is on a different tire than yesterday. So we'll see if that makes the difference. He was on a soft rear yesterday, and today he's on an extra soft rear, G-Dub. So he made that switch. We heard him in his comments yesterday say he was kind of messing around with the tire choice and he wasn't happy with it. And now we're going to see if that is going to make a big difference. This class, everybody thought it was going to be pouring rain right now, and so it rained really hard overnight. And this class was out in kind of a half wet, half dry conditions this morning on full wets. And like I said, Corey Ventura, I believe, was the quickest of them. But now we got a full dry track, so any changes they made overnight are going to be new.
16 laps scheduled in this one. We're off and away. And a good launch from the number 2 and your points leader, Josh Herrin, on that Warhorse HSBK Racing Ducati.
Oh, great. I don't know what just happened, but Ty Scott was second and just got swallowed up in turn 1. Like, he went up over the top of that hill, and 3 riders probably went by Ty Scott going into turn 1. So at the original, it looked like it was going to be Ty Scott in second, but Josh Herrin making a big run out front. Josh Hayes goes up underneath Rocco Landers. And if Herrin could look back right now, he'd love to see what he is looking at. And Rocco Landers stuffs it back up under Hayes. Hayes then turns it around and stuffs it back up under him. And Benjamin Smith sitting there wondering when he could get involved.
All the while, I'm sure Rocco Landers doesn't want to be racing his instructor, his teacher, his mentor, Josh Hayes. He's trying to get after Josh Herrin. But Josh Herrin, that's the start we saw at the beginning of the year with Herrin, where he gets out to this complete jackrabbit start and then checks out.
Look at him go. I mean, look, this is a guy who's confident in the tire choice today. You know, this is the tire that he's been on. We are lucky enough to get the information from Dunlop of tire selections of these guys, and all year long he's been on extra soft, front and rear. And yesterday he was on the soft, and so now you can see the confidence he has in a tire that he already has a ton of experience on and believes in, and he is tearing away at the front. Benjamin Smith now having a look underneath Josh Hayes as they head into the chicane. He'll make that pass, 88, with a really nice move on the 4-time Superbike champ there. Now Rocco's just got to get his head down, and we're going to see if Herrin's got more pace today than he had yesterday right now.
Yeah, and Rocco needs to be patient. He doesn't need to force the issue. From a standing start, we're waiting for those lap times to come up. A 1:47.3 for Josh Herrin, as a 1:48.4 for Rocco from a standing start.
1.3 seconds. I mean, that is how you start a race. That's being connected with what you want to accomplish at the beginning of a race and having full-on faith in the stuff you have underneath you. But we'll look at these splits now and see if that starts chipping away. Good to see Benjamin Smith here. Talked to his dad briefly. And they've still been having troubles, Greg, kind of every round. Just, it's always one thing or another, and it's been significant enough. But it was great seeing Benjamin kind of finish that race closer yesterday than he had been in some of our other races.
Yeah, we're talking about the 88 on the Northeast Cycle Outlet Racing Yamaha R6 as we look deeper in the field. There's 24, Corey Ventura. And
Something's happened to Josh Hayes, too. He's going backwards.
Yeah, something's going on. But now all of a sudden you have a pair of Vision Wheel M4 X-Star Suzukis. Meanwhile, that N2 bobblehead racing rider of Josh Hayes trying to figure something out as to why he's going back so quickly. And now it's Benjamin Smith who's closed the gap on Rocco. So Rocco was making a big push. And then we have the 37 of Stefano Mesa, who just shows up to these races and just sometimes appears, and he appears really fast. Jamie, what do you have on the 37?
Well, you think about what he's done, and it's been so impressive. This is only his 4th Supersport race of the season. The only other round that he participated in was back at MotoAmerica, and this is the old spec of motorcycles, so he doesn't even have the latest and greatest, and with the newest bikes being just a little bit heavier, one of the things that Stefano's had to do to that Kawasaki is add 17 pounds of weight, but he doesn't have the budget of some of these big teams. He doesn't have a fabricator to put that weight on there for him, so he actually just went to Dunlop and bought 17 pounds worth of wheel weight, stuck them underneath the seat. So he's certainly making chicken salad out of chicken soup, if you will. You know, he's doing everything that he can. He says he's out here having a great time, and it's fun to get up there and mix it up inside the top 5.
Yeah, and those 2 finishes he had early in their season, both 5th place finishes. So that bike has got to feel completely different with all that extra weight on it.
And he rides every single weekend that he can. I know Stefano does a ton of club racing, Greg, and so he's well familiar. with the tracks that we go to and such. A little further back, Corey Ventura still leading Ty Scott. I'm still a little bit puzzled, other than an experience thing maybe for Ty as he got into turn 1 there, because he had a clearly great start as Mesa has a look up underneath Benjamin Smith and thinks better of that going into turn number 7. So Mesa's looking hard to get to the front up and get with Rocco here. I'm looking at the lap times, Greg, 45 flat. Our leader went 44.7 that last time by, and Herrin continues to pound out these sectors. Quickest first sector again for Herrin. Now we still have 14 laps to go, so we're gonna have to see how this thing really plays it out. But the number 2 right now is having it all on his own.
Yeah, and this is unfamiliar territory over the last 3 races for Rocco Landers, but still holding on to second place. Hannah?
And talking to Rocco, he said he feels really planted getting back on the throttle. They're running the same gearing as yesterday as well. Ultimately, he said, we heard at the beginning of this race that it was going to be a little bit more challenging today, especially with this green track, all the rain we saw overnight. He didn't care wet or dry conditions either way, but he said, I don't know if I'm going to be able to run away with it the way I have in the past, but I'll be really happy to see a podium.
Well, right now, we get a better look at Josh Herrin and what he's able to do. So it's been 1.8 seconds, the gap for the last couple laps. Herrin, of course, with the fastest lap of the race at a 1:44.732 last time by, goes 1:44.787. So Rocco now at a 1:44.7 as well, his best. So kind of holding steady at the moment. But the question too, Jason, as the race wears on with different conditions, it's cooler than it's been, the track conditions like Hannah mentioned, and this cloud cover as well. How hard can Rocco push and not abuse that rear Dunlop tire?
Well, that's what we're going to be able to tell here in a minute, Greg, because he only lost, I think it was at 1.3 the first lap, then it went to half a second to 1.7, so he only lost 0.1, legitimately less than that probably on the next one. So when we're starting to look at it here, look at that first split. 43.3 again for Herrin, 43.4 for Rocco Landers, and Mesa has made the pass on the 88 of Benjamin Smith. This is great stuff from Mesa right now, and you can see how comfortable he looks on this bike. We've seen him on the podium plenty of times here in MotoAmerica. And now he's going to try to go after Rocco Landers. And Rocco's trying to split away from these guys a little bit. But for Rocco, if he starts to see that gap doesn't get bigger at the front, it'll calm his nerves a little bit of whether or not he feels like he can run Herrin down. I mean, Greg, we've been watching him win by like 6 seconds, 7 seconds, and they haven't been that close. Even up to 16 seconds at Brainerd, he was ahead in the race too. But he's kind of started to stall that gap, hasn't he?
He has. It's 1.6 seconds by the last split sector time. But as we get to the front straightaway, Josh Herrin is going to start getting some information from his pit board. It might say that gap is closing, so 0.2 of a second. Almost Rocco was able to claw back on Josh Herrin. Meanwhile, Mesa at 1.1 behind, and Rocco goes fastest lap of the race, Jay, 1:44.5 now. The thing we do know is that even with that extra soft tire that Josh Herrin is riding on right now, the Ducati tends to be great at the end of the race. Now, for the Warhorse HSBK Racing Ducati New York team, tip of the cap. I mean, when it was wet this morning, that team was changing fork springs, shock spec, and they were able to put this motorcycle right back to where it was yesterday. And Herrin having a good run at it at the moment.
No,
but we'll continue. Yeah, he's doing great. We'll continue to take a look at these splits though, Jay, because Rocco Landers is definitely, he's pushing hard. So the question is, does Herrin have an answer for him, even this early in the race? Because we know, just like Rocco, Josh Herrin likes to win by large margins.
Well, I think that it's all about his pit board and what the pit board's going to be telling him. And if they are doing it to the 10th of a second, he's going to see that it came down a couple of tenths that last time by, Greg. So it's going to be a matter of they're going to be on top of things, looking to see what's going on. Jamie?
I talked to Josh Herrin about that battle with Rocco this morning, and he said that he was pretty surprised by the amount of confidence that Rocco had been able to grow into. He said, I've been around a long time. I've won championships of my own, and I've seen riders go through this boost of confidence, but he was surprised by how quickly it did come from Rocco Landers. But he said for him, he has to get his mind out of there. He can't think about it. He's thinking big picture. He doesn't want to say the word championship, even though that's what all the early work of the season put him in the position to think about. But he said, I've got to think about just race wins, and that's just going out, doing what we have to do lap after lap, and not concerning myself with what the gap is or what Rocco's doing behind me. He said, I've got to put my head down and just focus on my own race.
And his head is down, Jay, at 1:44.687. So fastest lap of the race for Herrin personally. Still a 10th of a second slower than Rocco's fastest lap of the race, but he was able to get a 10th back, so 1.7 now.
He's able to manage that right now. And if you remember in our closing comments yesterday, I made a comment, G-Dub, about Herrin's not going to want to keep losing. He's not going to want to keep finishing second. He's not going to want to win this championship in that kind of fashion. He still feels he can win races. He still feels he can win races without taking unnecessary risks. And that's what you're seeing right now. He's riding as hard as he wants to ride and as comfortable as he can while keeping an eye on that bigger picture. But he still feels he can win races.
Plus, Jason, we know that racing has a lot of momentum built into it. And Rocco Landers coming into this race had a lot of momentum. And so Herrin wants to be able to put a stop to that. Not only just get back to his winning ways, but also just to keep Rocco Landers in check.
That's exactly right, yeah.
So it's Herrin, Landers, Smith. You can see left part of your screen. Mesa, Ty Scott in 5th. Corey Ventura, the fill-in rider, of course, on the Vision Wheel M4X Star Suzuki team. And Jay, in talking with Ty Scott earlier today, he was telling me just how much fun he actually had in the race yesterday. He had tremendous amounts of fun. This team has been through some major setup changes during the course of this weekend, and it has to do really most of it with the wheelbase of the motorcycle. They had a motorcycle that was set up longer, meaning that the axle of the axle that goes in the swing arm for the back wheel was set pretty far back. I mean, we're talking, Ty thought it was 40 millimeters the difference between where it was set back to where it's now set forward, where we know for Ty Scott, he likes a kind of a shorter wheelbase motorcycle. He actually enjoys it if it's a little bit twitchy.
Yep.
When he gets on the gas, where we know a longer wheelbase motorcycle tends to be a little bit more controllable when the rear wheel starts to spin.
Yeah, maybe a little bit heavier tip in when it's a little bit longer, and you can play with geometries and things like that. As you can see now, Ty Scott has got himself well and truly in this battle for 3rd now, as Benjamin Smith and Mesa have had that kind of all on their own. But for Ty Scott, that last time by, 45 flat, he has got into the high 44s at a 44.9, meaning his best lap of the race. But he's going to fight those guys for 3rd. More importantly, Greg, Josh Herrin's still keeping it in the 44s, and he pulled out a nice little gap. He's over 2 seconds now ahead of Rocco Landers. 2.1 seconds now is the gap between 1st and 2nd.
And he just extended it in that last sector to 2.4. Looking at the battle for 3rd place, it's Benjamin Smith, Stefano Mesa, and Ty Scott. Ty right now looks to be the fastest on there. However, Benjamin Smith, now that he's got a clear track in front of him, he looks to have taken the bull by the horns. Jay, looking up at the sector splits to our race leader, he just goes fastest sector split for Josh Herrin, a 43.266. So Herrin continues to push out front.
He's obviously feeling very comfortable, isn't he? And again, this is going to be experience. Any changes that they may have made on this bike at all for this morning's session is going to be a lot different than what their conditions are that they're riding in now. So it could have just been just a tire, Greg. That was all that Herrin needed, is to go back to something familiar that he wanted to ride on. Not sure if he was talked out of using that tire yesterday or not, but you can see on his board they put 2.2, and it's actually 2.8 as he goes quickest lap of the race at a 44.5.
Yeah, and confidence, especially when you're riding these motorcycles. This Ducati Panigale V2 of the Warhorse HSBK Racing Ducati New York team, no traction control like some of these other bikes in this class. So it's all on Josh Herrin on the right wrist. And so the comfort of rear grip is massively important. The battle for 3rd continues with Benjamin Smith, Mesa, and Scott, as Herrin just goes fastest lap of the race at a 44.571. So just a tick or so faster than what Rocco set a few laps ago, but Herrin continues to set a torrid pace. But Ty Scott back there in 5th, looks like he's got some speed, Hannah.
He does. In the mixed conditions this morning, they wanted to try some different things, maybe a stiffer rear, but didn't have the opportunity to. So good for him to get a little bit of experience in those mixed conditions, but obviously didn't help them out for this dry race right now. I was talking to his crew chief, Robbie Peterson, and he said, he's so early on in the stages of development with this motorcycle and in his career as a racer. He's really young. Last year was his first year in our series. And so he's had so much early success that sometimes he's really hard on himself and he's frustrated with a 2nd or a 3rd place finish. So after yesterday's result, he's learning to be content with giving his best performance, but still expect and want more from himself.
Yeah, I think with the amount of races that he won last year in SportBikeTrackGear.com Junior Cup, he appears as a seasoned veteran, but he's still only 16 years old.
Yeah, it is crazy. And he's got a little bit better pace than the 2 in front of him. And, he'll have learned some stuff. It'll be interesting if he does make his way to this podium, as you see the bike get really loose, like you were alluding to earlier, he doesn't mind that, Greg, but that's kind of where you're giving up that stability in the middle of the corner when you run something a little bit shorter. So, you know, again, is it a brand new step that he's on? Could possibly be. So, you know, out of those slow corners, that's where the torque of the 750 is going to react a little different than a high revving R6 and 636 that he's chasing.
What's really interesting to me right now, Jason, is if you look at the shadows on the racetrack, there are certain areas where the sun is starting to poke through this thick cloud cover, which also means you're going to get some more heat in the surface. And we're deep into this race. I mean, there's only 7.5 laps to go. With that, what's going to happen to tire performance if it really starts to heat up? And who's going to have that tire underneath him? Because each one of these motorcycles we're looking at, you're looking at a Yamaha R6 in the 88, the 37's on a Kawasaki ZX6R, and behind him is a GSXR 750 by the 70. And they all work tires different way.
Here you go, Greg. He's going to have that bike nice and leaned over, and he's trying to get that power on smooth. But a lot of times the 750 is going to be a little lower RPM. If all the bikes are going through there in second gear, it might be in a little bit lower RPM than the high revving bikes in front of him. So it's kind of build up through that torque curve. And when you're on the edge of the tire, that's what you're seeing there when he starts to roll that throttle on. He has all the confidence. The bike's not moving. Then it kind of gets it from that torque curve into a horsepower curve. And you'll see the bike start moving around. And that really did just cost him a few tenths of a second there in that last corner. As these other two guys have pulled away ever so slightly.
Yeah, Jay, and talking to the Vision Wheel M4 Star Suzuki team, the difference between the GSXR 600 and the GSXR 750, we know that the chassis are the same, the swing arms are the same, everything's basically identical except the displacement of the actual motor itself. But the way that the rules work in MotoAmerica and in World Supersport for balancing, the horsepower is nearly identical from the 750 to the 600 as they are able to control that with this throttle-by-wire system. It's the torque that the 750 produces, Jay, and that's the challenge, like you're talking about. How do you manage that torque curve because you're going to get extra spin on the tire? 3 wide they go into turn number 3, and it's going to be a pass by Ty Scott. So he gets around Mesa, and he'll take over 4th spot. And now the 16-year-old is getting after that podium as he sees the 88 right there.
Yeah, and if there's a person in this group here that needs a podium, I would think it's Ben Smith. So he's fighting along, and you can see Corey Ventura, Luke Power, and Josh Hayes are all locked into battle here as well for Luke. Haven't got to talk about him much lately, but he's taking a look down the inside of Corey Ventura as they come down into turn 7. The young Australian here on the bike number 68 getting to see all these tracks for the first time. I'm not sure if he got to see it last weekend or not, but he's getting to see all these tracks across America for the first time. Seems to be enjoying himself.
He was hoping for rain too. We know that he had an outstanding performance at Road America in the rain earlier this season, did Luke Power, but we've got dry conditions. Battle for third. Josh Herrin all the while 4.2 seconds ahead of Rocco Landers, who's 5 seconds adrift of this podium fight. It looks like Ty Scott has a notion. He wants to do something right now on Benjamin Smith into the chicane. That is a gnarly pass. He gets it done. So there goes the 16-year-old around the 88, at least for the moment.
Yeah, and now it's a matter of, will these guys be able to go with Ty here? So we saw yesterday, once Ty Scott got past Benjamin, he wasn't quite able to go with him. So off in the distance, you could see Rocco Landers tipping into turn 1. So this is the fast kink. You're going to be going through the gears up all the way to 5th gear, going through this area here. And you can see Ty Scott lets the bike run out a little bit more in that fast left. And he gets around the outside there at Benjamin. And Mesa now has also made the pass on Ben Smith too. If you look here, Greg, you can see Mesa must have done something down in the turn 1 area to get past the 88 as well.
So Herrin, your leader, Rocco Landers in second. Now Ty Scott owning 3rd place and starting to check out on the battle for 4th. Here is Josh Herrin now with a 5.2 second margin over Rocco Landers, and he continues to circulate right around the top end of the 44s and low 45. So a 45.0 last time by for Herrin, where Rocco Landers answered with a 46 flat. Ty Scott did a 46.6. Live championship points as the 5 points that Josh Herrin lost yesterday to Rocco Landers. He'd gain that back today if it ended this way at the moment. So 76 points in your live championship look.
Yeah, and you got to keep in mind right now, going into that next race at Jersey with a 75-point lead after race 1 in Jersey, he would be crowned champ. And with over 100 points between him and 3rd, Rocco's got to keep it on an island back there in order to keep this championship going to the next round. But this has been super dominating performance today from Josh Herrin, still running 45 flat last time by. So he's really able to lock the times in, Greg, from that 44.5 to 45 flat. Now he's just gone 45.1. So he was operating within half a second. Gets in deep, Greg, and runs off the track.
Oh, no. So Josh Herrin's in deep. Can he get it back on the racetrack? He's got to go through that wet grass. That is pretty gnarly. Looks like he's able to save it. No problems. But that huge margin that he built up, 5.9 seconds, allotted him and allowed him to have a margin over Rocco Landers. But Landers all of a sudden with the bit between his teeth. Herrin's got to be careful these first couple of corners because there's definitely water on those slick Dunlop tires. By now it should have worked itself off. So Herrin with a big mistake. Other than time though, Jason, it looks like there's no big dramas. However, the question is, was that a function of something that might be going wrong?
No,
or if it was just a mistake?
Simply a mistake. We had a close-up view of him going in there, and it didn't look. It just looked odd to me, and I couldn't picture out what was going on. You can see you have a nice angle here, and he's got the bike in gear. It gets a little bit sideways, but now you can see him going to that rear brake, and you see the thing getting wide and away from the apex of that corner. So I could see that there was something happening. I'm happy to see Herrin keep this bike upright because I know that grass is going to be soaking wet. And even right now, he's probably thinking to himself, all right, got to be smooth here, getting back on the gas. And then you saw him kind of tiptoe through turns 3 and 4, just in case he had any of that water still on his tires, Greg. So back to the drawing board. He's gone from almost a 6-second lead to, well, now you can see Rocco Landers there. That's going to give Rocco a little bit of extra hope. But I think Herrin, being the veteran he is, will settle back down, let this lap go, and then he'll probably put in a nice quick lap this next one.
Well, that's really the key, is what does Rocco have left in the tank? If Rocco had said to himself, okay, I'm going to settle for second and slow this pace down, Rocco may have some tire underneath him, but it looks like Josh Herrin, he just goes for it. So the difference is 4 seconds. So that lap, Herrin goes 150.5, where Rocco did a 146 flat. So if Rocco had anything, if he was able to dip back into the 45s, with Herrin right in front of him, he would have done it.
Yeah, and what you got to figure, too, is that Herrin's going to challenge himself now. He's going to say, okay, I got to just get my stuff back together here. I want to see that board get back up to +2, +3, so I can kind of coast at home. You can see he's already pulled away quite a bit, even from the last lap. I would expect this lap to be a very low 45 for him. As Rocco Landers, Greg, was only able to do a 46 flat that last time through. So 45.6 for Josh Hayes in 6th place. So he's actually going quicker as the race goes on, but Hayes is way too far back. But it just kind of goes to show you that our 2nd place rider right now is at a 46.0. Wasn't really able to take advantage as much as he would have liked of that mistake by Josh Herrin.
Let's check in with Jamie.
Well, one of the things that came out of that 6.5-second win yesterday for Rocco Landers was that one of the competitors, we don't know who at this point in time, but one of the competitors did file a protest against Landers Racing. And what's going to happen after tonight is that team will have to work with the MotoAmerica technical staff, and they're going to tear apart this engine. They were actually given the opportunity to do it after the race yesterday, but Stoney Landers said, nope, not going to do it. This is a good piece in there. I'm going to leave it in for the race today. They put stickers over it to seal it up, and they're going to have to tear that down tonight. We'll see what comes from it, but for Stoney Landers, he says, you know what, it's a little bit of a confidence booster. That means they're looking at us. I know I'm not cheating and feel pretty confident about what they're going to find, but it's a boost in our arm because they're looking at us now.
Well, I think, Jamie, it goes without saying that we've seen this through years and years of racing where you've seen a young man take a while to get used to a new class. And on that Supersport bike, Greg, it's taken Rocco a little bit of time, hasn't it? And all of a sudden he starts winning and people start questioning, and
heads start turning.
The heads start turning, and I think if anything else, it's great that they're thinking about you, and we'll see tonight. I think had that motor been illegal, Stoney would have probably just gone and had that motor torn apart last night.
And by the way, Josh Herrin answers after his off-track excursion with a new record in this race, fastest lap at a 144.515. So now all the Warhorse HSBK Racing Ducati New York team, their heart rates are starting to settle down as Josh Herrin decided to make it interesting. Too many Joshes these days.
I said he would try to challenge himself though, and get his focus back together and run that fast lap. So 44.515.
And
like
that's off of the back of fastest Sector 3 split time, too. So, again, it plays into the strength that Josh Herrin has talked about all year, that the difference between this Ducati and some of the other competitors is how great it is on the rear tire and how much tire he has left late in the race. And to do it, a 144.515 with 2.5 or 3 laps to go shows you how dialed in this motorcycle is and how determined Josh Herrin is as a racer.
Yeah, no question, and he's pulled that gap right back out. 46.0 again for Rocco, so that's kind of what that R6 has in it right now. It's got just 46 flats, high 45s. He also knows that he's got a 5-second gap over Ty Scott, who is still battling pretty hard back there with Mesa. There's the gap between the 2 leaders with 2 laps to go. You can see that it's pulled right back out to 4 seconds already. Here's that battle for third. Benjamin Smith has kind of gotten off the back of these 2 guys.
And by the way, according to MotoAmerica's trap speeds, that Ducati fastest trap last time by 146.1 miles an hour. It was Josh Herrin's fastest trap speed of the race this late. Another example of how hard he's pushing after a 44.771 last time by the stripe. Ty Scott having a really good race, Jason. Coming in here, yeah, really good. He was challenged and he reeled him in. And he was really getting by Mesa, who
What a race by this guy too, right?
It's incredible.
I mean, really cool to see Mesa doing as well as he is, and Ty Scott's just starting to gap him a little bit here. Both these riders are still in the 45s, high 45s at that, but
Mesa finished 7th in yesterday's race, now in 4th spot with a lap and a half to go for championship points leader Josh Herrin. Looking to get out of here with the same advantage he had going in. And when this race is over, like Jason Pridmore talked about, there's only 4 races left, which means there's only 100 points on offer remaining in the 2022 Supersport season. Through the chicane goes the Ducati rider. Some traffic up ahead. Blue flags will fly for the lap traffic, indicating to them that the leader is on his way. Here we go onto the front straightaway, and Josh Herrin will see that white flag fly. I would think at some point maybe a relief for Herrin as he eases by the 62. What are you seeing from Josh Herrin right now and the way he's managing this rear tire of this Ducati?
Greg, he's still got plenty of tire underneath him. He went
amazing.
45.1. He sees his board back up to 5 seconds. I mean, he had a look over his shoulder after they came up over the rise. And, you know, like, look, he'll probably make fun of himself for making a small mistake down there in turn 1. I mean, you can do that every now and then. And he, you know, had a lot of runoff, ran through the grass. I'm sure his heart went through his throat for a minute there. Never would like to see a rider lose a race that way, but kept his composure. And that's just being the veteran that he is, and many laps as he's ran.
Yeah, I'll probably come in and say something like, I was just trying to make it interesting for everybody.
Something, yeah.
But Jason, this comes off the back of an absolute jackrabbit start. So the question is, have they figured out what made him so successful at the beginning of the season? Because when we went to our first round at Atlanta, if you remember, Josh Herrin just got away and decimated the field just right from the start.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, I remember those starts, and it was like that first lap. And today was very reminiscent of those starts, wasn't it, Greg? I mean, he 1.3 second lead at the end of the first lap, and it literally just throws a knife into your competitors, because when you see a guy just sprinting away like that and making it look as easy as he did, you know, that was definitely a big, huge key to this race for him as he gets set into the last corner here.
So final corners for Josh Herrin as one more flick of the left, and onto the front straightaway he comes, and it's back to the winning ways for the 32-year-old. The California resident Josh Herrin takes victory, and here comes second place Rocco Landers, 5 seconds behind. And now we expect the 70 of Ty Scott to roll through. So the Vision Wheel M4XR Suzuki rider will stand on the podium with his Landers Racing compatriot and Warhorse HSBK Ducati New York's stand-up wheelie king, Josh Herrin. A good run and a look at those laps, and it's lap 12.
Pretty impressive, isn't it?
So it goes from a 150 to a 144.5.
Yeah, no question there. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty good to see him do as good as he did there. and get right back down to those 44s.
Yep, a pat on the tank. And that goes not only to the Ducati Panigale V2, but also his team and the work they put in today to not only find a wet setup for Josh in the morning, but get back to that dry setup, and everything seemed to go perfectly. I think the debate of what tire Josh Herrin wants to run will be over now.
I think so. And it was interesting because I did notice it yesterday when we got the notes, but it was interesting when he actually said it in the podium interview that he had gotten away from something that he was comfortable with. So, but man, confidence as a rider, when you have confidence and you look at your Dunlop technicians and they're telling you about what they see or what they feel about a tire and you trust it, man, I tell you, Greg, that's a big one for a rider.
Front wheel in the air. We'll talk to Herrin about his race and this wheelie when we return.
Well, Josh Herrin back to what he was doing early in the season. Pretty dominant performance today and answering back to Rocco Landers.
He really did. And, you know, I told you before this race started that Josh Herrin was going to be aggressive. And I could tell it on their warm-up lap how hard he was riding. I knew he was going to put on a show today. And, you know, he rode great. I don't know what Rocco was struggling with. We've been talking about the track. You know, Josh rode great. Obviously, he was really good. Had a better pace. Was the better man today. Rocco was a little bit off of what he did yesterday. But for Rocco, still a great ride for him, you know, to get second. I know he would have liked to have been a lot closer, especially after that little gift that Josh gave him with about 5 laps to go. But today it's all about Josh Herrin. He stepped up and, you know, stopped the bleeding, I guess you could say, the train that Rocco was on, and, you know, has to feel good. You know, we mentioned it yesterday. These riders, especially like a Josh Herrin, you know, we all have egos and, you know, pride and all that stuff, and you don't want to get beat like he's been getting beat by a young kid.
Absolutely, and Herrin, that was his 8th win of the season, and I believe a really, really impressive 12th win in MotoAmerica Supersport. So a good run there. You can see Rocco, you know, obviously he would have liked to have won this one, but he was looking like he was pretty happy getting his 10th podium of the season and keeping that pretty good run alive. But yeah, more smiles there between Josh and the crew today when he gets into victory circle.
Well, Rocco just still making that leap. When we said whenever he would, you know, if he really made the leap, what would he do this weekend?
Yes.
And he's proved that both races. You know, you're not going to win every race by 6 seconds. When Rocco, you know, I mean, no, when you win your first one, you can go on a run, you get that confidence. But for Rocco to do what he did and not toss it down the road, trying to catch Josh when he doesn't have it, and it showed some maturity. And also Tyler Scott, he's been riding great. Not as close now as he was at probably the beginning of the year because Rocco and Josh just kind of stepped up a little bit, but also he's still the best of the rest and just riding so well for his first year in the class, just learning so much. His best lap is really, you know, only 4/10 off of what Josh Herrin and Rocco did. He got a terrible start.
He really did.
If he didn't get such a bad start, he might have had the pace to go with Rocco.
And in the end, I mean, he did rebound and pick up his 7th podium on the season, so not too bad either. And Stefano Mesa, just a really stout run up into 4th. Benjamin Smith, who was so quick yesterday as well, again in the top 5. And Josh Hayes just struggling. And most of what we're looking at the monitors, he just seems to be down on power because he's consistently 3, 4, 5 miles an hour straight line speed off of everybody up front. But it's time to get back to Greg and Jason.
Riders making their way to their celebration station. Winner's Circle. Congratulations from Josh Herrin's team.
Yeah, dude.
Josh,
Did you see me run off?
Did you see me run off?
I think we probably all saw that.
Pretty much we did. There's the margin of victory, 5 seconds, and another 5.1 from Rocco to Tyler Scott and Mesa, Benjamin Smith, Josh Hayes right there. Josh Hayes set his fastest lap of the race in the last one, but it's all about Josh Herrin on this one, and he is in winner's circle right now.
Back on the top of the box for Josh Herrin after 3 races. 5 laps to go, made a little bit of a mistake. We saw you in the grass. What happened out there?
I don't know what I did. I think I went a little bit too late on the brake marker. Scared me pretty bad, especially I got in right to the very edge. I'm like, all right, I'll just run off a little bit. I had a little bit of lean, but I knew it'd be all right. And then I remembered it rained this morning, and it scared the crap out of me. So I got really lucky that I was able to keep it up over there through the grass. Got to give a big shout out to my entire HSBK Racing Warhorse Ducati V-twin team. Yesterday was frustrating. I came in here pretty upset, and they you know, basically just took it, and they shouldn't. I shouldn't be acting that mad, but I was frustrated. And I'm happy to be able to repay them today with a victory. Bike was working really great. I'm super fortunate that we were able to do the Weir race last weekend and get a lot of experience. I ran off in turn 1 about 10 times in the endurance race last week, so maybe that's what prepared me for the runoff today. But thank you to all my sponsors, Rye Helmets, Alpine Star Leathers, Fresh and Lean, OnlyFans, Black Claw, everybody that's involved. I really appreciate the sport here out in Pittsburgh. It's awesome, and can't wait to come back next year.
What factors were it that you think contributed to you being able to dominate in a way that we haven't seen you in a couple of rounds?
I just got tired of getting beat, man. It's frustrating getting beaten. Yesterday I made a poor decision on the tires, and it made me even more frustrated. So had a lot of fuel under me. I've been thinking a little bit too much about the championship, thinking that lead was going to sit there for a long time, but when you get beat 3 times in a row, it starts eating away. So I had to put a little bit of gap back on them, and now we got 4 races left with a 76-point lead. So we're super happy going into the next round, and excited about this year. Thank you to Ducati and Bobby and the Naples and everybody for giving me the chance to ride this amazing bike. Anybody that's not getting one, you're sleeping, go out and try one. They're a lot of fun, and can't wait to go to the next race.
Congrats, Josh. Jamie Howe was with our second place finisher.
And it was Rocco Landers who beat Josh Herrin those 3 races in a row, including yesterday with a 6.5-second lead. But in a show of sportsmanship, you were the first to congratulate him. It happened down on the cool-down lap. What made the difference today?
Number 1, I got to give a big, huge thank you to the N2 Racing team for letting me ride their R1 last weekend at Weira. Prepared me to run one of these soft tires for a long lap. It was gnarly. Yeah, but I was trying to catch up to him. I kind of screwed myself with that start there. I'm sorry to my team for that, but kind of punished it a little bit and wasn't able to carry the speed to the end of the race, but still felt good. I'm really happy. It's kind of funny because I was praying for second place finishes at Laguna, and now it's a bad day to get second place, so it's kind of funny. But we're hoping to get on the P1 again to New Jersey.
Thank you, Rocco. Hannah?
Third place today goes to Tyler Scott. A pair of thirds on the weekend for you. How are you feeling about your overall performance there? You made some pretty good work of Mesa and Benjamin Smith in this battle here.
Yeah, right off the start I got a bad start, but thank you to the whole Vision Wheel M4 start team, Robbie, Barry, everyone, Dustin. The bike handled great, and that's what helped me recover.
Well, congrats, Tyler Scott, rounding out our podium.
Yeah, great job by Ty Scott, and he'll take that other podium. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to continue our coverage from Pit Race, Supersport race number 2. Hang tight.
Well, I think the tale of the tape there is really twofold, isn't it? Rocco kind of alluding to the fact that he took too much out of the tires early, and then Josh Herrin, when he had that off, got back onto the track, and within 4 or 5 corners was just right back on his pace. That didn't dissuade him at all.
Yeah, and you know, sometimes whenever a track's green like this one is right now, it can really wear out a tire quicker. And I think, like, sometimes when we used to go testing, you know, the beginning of the test day, we would go through tires really quick because we were cleaning the track. And I think for Rocco, you know, for his tire to last so well yesterday, seen him the crew all looking at the tire. I think maybe, you know, he's talking about that endurance race, you know, been getting so used to so many laps on the tire. That's what he was spilling, and I think that had something to do with it. But, you know, for Josh, it was, you know, like you said, I mentioned that yesterday, you know, he hates getting beat like that, and today he wanted to kind of be the man on top, and he proved it.
Well, you said before the race started, you said that Josh Herrin was going to be ultra aggressive today, and I mean, basically, he nailed the start, and obviously with Rocco having not a great start and people getting bottled up, by the time they came out of turn 2, he had a half-second lead already.
Not even, I meant like aggressive, like if Rocco passed him, he was going to attack right back, but also You know, and aggressive the way he was. He put his head down. I mean, he came out of turn 1 with a half a second lead before they got to turn 2. I mean, when the lights went out,
yep.
You know, it was like he was ready first couple laps, and everybody else was taking their time to get warmed up. He was gone.
Yeah, he just got after it immediately and really got himself back on track in terms of his own personal confidence, obviously, after Rocco, you know, being on that roll and taking it after him. Tyler Scott, again, bad start, fought his way back up into a podium position.
Yeah, and great for him. Terrible start, you know, and it's easy for a young kid when you get a bad start like that, start forcing it and then end up on the deck. He got a bad start. Knew his best, he's going to get his third, just chipped away at it, and ended up on another podium. 2 podiums for him. He's learning so much this year and doing a great job.
Yeah, he is. I mean, just having stepped up out of Junior Cup as the champion there, of course. So more yet to come in our coverage here of Supersport at Pit Race.
MotoAmerica Supersport coverage is sponsored by Dunlop, the official tire of the MotoAmerica Championship Series, and by LaRoche Aviation Services, elevating your expectations.
This is what racers show up to the racetrack for, podium celebrations. And Josh Herrin with a big smile on his face as he gets to stand on the top of the box. The intensity's still there, Jay.
Oh, yeah.
For you and I, we've been around him for 16 years already.
Incredible. Yeah.
All right, let's get right down to Jamie Howe.
We talked about it's out here so far this season. What you're able to do with an older motorcycle, how do you make it work?
Yeah, it was a race. It's not really an old motorcycle. We're just with the homologation from last year in the motor, so we're maybe a little bit off horsepower, but it was a great race. I always put out my everything out there, and my hat's off to my whole team for giving me a good bikes. I do 2 classes and 2 races, so it's very hard to be jumping from bike to bike, and just everything's very different. So it's good to be getting the hang of it again and getting towards the front.
You're a fan favorite at every event that you show up to because you do race in the multiple classes. You're one with the fans. It's a privateer effort for you. What is it like to come out and run against the bigger teams, some of them even with factory support?
Yeah, I mostly concentrate doing the club racing stuff. That's kind of how I make my living. But we like to come out here and try to hang with the fast boys, and we're happy to be close to them. And if we get on the podium, we're even happier. So it's good to be here, you know.
You have a big fan base around the world, particularly a Latin fan base. What do you want to say to them that would just watch this one?
Sí, a los latinos, muchas gracias por escucharnos, por vernos, y a Latinui, Quatzimoto, por toda la ayuda este fin de semana y el fin de semana del season.
Congratulations, Stefano. 4th place finish today. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
That's a great ride. Absolutely love having him here in the paddock. And yeah, Jay, you know, back in the day, in your day, all the factory riders, they were racing 2 classes, but we don't see it very often today.
No, we don't. And at a limited budget like what Stefano has, like you heard him say, he goes in club races almost every weekend, and you'll find him at a racetrack. If you follow him on Instagram, you'll see he's always at a racetrack, always has mom there by the side, and he's got a good group of people around him, and he makes a living doing club races everywhere, and then we're lucky enough to get him to a few of these.
Yeah, when you talk to club racers, Jason, one thing about Mesa is he owns track records at some of these smaller tracks around the country where MotoAmerica doesn't go, and he just owns track record after track record. So he shows up, and people go, oh, no, he comes up here, and he proves that he is a front runner, and it's really good to see him.
Yeah, absolutely, and like Jamie said, huge fan favorite.
But it's about Josh Herrin today. It really is about this championship points lead. Looking ahead, 76 points in this championship for Herrin. And when you look forward, Jason, to it, you have to say to yourself, this race start was incredible. I mean, look how quick he just jackrabbited away from the field.
Absolutely, yeah, he was gone. I mean, literally at this point here, he's almost got half a second as they entered through turn 1. And he just put his head down. And you know, Greg, when we talked about it again yesterday, you could hear and feel the frustration when he was on the podium of just how mad he was. He didn't kind of do what he felt like he could do yesterday, and today he wasn't going to have any of it. Took Rocco Landers a couple turns to get through on the number 4, Josh Hayes. And once he was able to do that, he had clear track, but he just couldn't make a dent in that gap. Benjamin Smith here slid up underneath Josh Hayes as they went into the chicane. Benjamin would hold third for the majority of that race as Ty Scott, Stefano Mesa started to push him along. You can see here Ty Scott goes up the inside of Mesa. He would later make a move on that lap on Benjamin Smith as they went to the chicane. Mesa would then in turn get by Benjamin Smith as well. This was a rare mistake that we see. This guy's got a lot of bike handling skills though, and I'm sure for just a minute once he remembered that it did pour rain last night, his heart went through his throat for a second. But you can see that gap came right down, but it just went right back up again. And yeah, today was all about Josh Herrin and putting himself back where he wants to be and not just winning this championship, rolling along in second and third.
When you look at the point standings and you say, okay, 76-point lead, we only have 100 on offer. Ty Scott comfortably in third place. But Jay, with most riders, I would think they would say, okay, cool, I can go out and I can finish second, I can finish third. You don't get that feeling with Josh Herrin, do you?
Well, not anymore. You know, I think the last few rounds, like you heard him say, he may have been thinking championship a little bit too much. But when you've got this big of a lead, he's got 76-point lead, now you can kind of go out and free for all it, you know, and I think that's what we'll see at Jersey as well. He goes good at Jersey. I remember him on Superbikes there and things, and I think that when we get to Jersey, he's going to be looking to do the exact same thing there that he did here today.
There have been some rumors as to what might happen with Josh Herrin in the final race of the season if he wraps up that championship early. So it's going to be cool to keep an eye on social media and what people have to say and what announcements may be coming. It may be nothing. It may be just a rumor. But what's going to happen if he wraps up this championship early? It's going to be fun.
I know what you're getting at.
You know what I'm getting at, but I can't really say because it's just a rumor at this point.
Yeah.
But we'll see if he can wrap it up early at New Jersey, heading into our final round at Barber. And yeah, this is what we have left in the 2022 season here in MotoAmerica. So we have New Jersey Motorsports Park coming up September 9th, and of course we always do something special September 11th, being so close to New York City, and then our final round, the 23rd through the 25th. At Barber Motorsports Park. Boy, it's crazy how quickly this season has gone.
It's pretty wild, yeah. And the neat thing is that even with all our championships, we haven't crowned any champions yet. I know that a few will probably get crowned there at Jersey, but you know, finishing the season in Barber at such a great venue with a beautiful museum, it's really the best place for us to finish our championship for sure.
Without question. And, you know, looking ahead, too, you look at the Supersport, the talent that's in the class, and people having to chase down Josh Herrin. Looking way forward, what's going to happen with Herrin next season? Will he run the #1 plate, stay in Supersport? Is he going to go to Superbike? Like, we don't know what's going to happen with him. I would love to see Josh Herrin stay in Supersport because we need that carrot for people to chase to continue to push the pace here in Supersport. Well, that'll do it for this one from Pit Race for Supersport. We certainly sure hope you enjoyed the coverage. We certainly enjoyed the racing. For all of our crew here in MotoAmerica, for Hannah Lopa, Jamie Howe, and Jason Pridmore, I'm Greg White. We will see you at New Jersey Motorsports Park in 2.5 weeks' time.